Mr. Kadish is the greatest live stream producer to ever live. He is both the smartest man alive and the sexiest. Jude is a lucky gal. Mr. Kadish is an inspiration to us all, and we are all better for having him in our lives. I honestly don't know what life would be like without Mr. Kadish. He is the sunshine on a gloomy day. All hail Mr. Kadish. He is my most favorite person ever. Huzzah.
Thank you, Dutch Butters. Really appreciate you. Good morning, everyone. It's Saturday, which means it's time for yet another Salty Saturday morning. I am your host, Mr. Kadish, the sexiest, best producer ever, as you know, laid out by Dutch Butters. And joining me today, as always, is my fantastic panel of nerds, Dutch Butters. Thank you for that wonderful intro.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm just going to ignore that you forced me to not say those things with your little keyboard in front of you there. So yeah, that was not me. That was Dutch Bot. So
yeah, well, this is a great setup to later on. We'll be talking about AI and how it's affecting the industry as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
I just can you like make that thing just be me on Saturday mornings, so I don't ever have to. So I can sleep in and not have to worry about showing up.
Oh man, I might actually get to the entire panel on time if I.
Yeah, just replace us all. That'd be completely okay.
Replace everyone. Yeah, exactly. Speaking of replacing, the guy who's been absent for a while, Brian from the Popcast. How you doing, Brian? Welcome back.
Not bad. Good to be back, my friend. Sorry, I was gone last couple weeks, but I'm here.
Yep, and you got a brand new documentary out that seems to be doing really well.
Yep, it's doing really well. Christopher Reeve's Superman, the history of, and it's a full-fledged documentary. It took a long time to make, and I'm pretty happy with it. And we got another one coming out this next Saturday. So
awesome stuff! Just in time for the new Superman movie.
We're bringing out a bunch of Superman-style documentaries before the movie.
Cool. Speaking of cool. The man, the myth, the legend, the king of the pineapple pizza, the lord of the shelves, OMB reviews. How you doing, Odin?
I'm doing just fine. Well, I've been better, to be honest. I got some medical stuff going on. Prayers would be appreciated. Nothing crazy or anything to worry about as of yet, but just a lot of like unknown things, potential things going on with my liver, is what I'll say.
He's lying. It's a penis production surgery.
But anyway, yeah, my kids are hilarious. My daughter is refusing to sleep, and so I've got like the baby cam up right now and just watching her play with her blanket, try to like put it on her crib, and she's breaking out of her sleep sack, and she doesn't know how to put it back on. It's just it's so fun. You know, kids are hilarious.
I wish we had that Beavis and Butthead clip where he's like, "Ow, my liver! Ow, my liver!"
Well, liver's an important thing, so hopefully Odin, you come out of it okay.
Yeah,
and
no reason to worry yet, but again, there's always that we just don't know. I have to get a CT scan next week, so.
Oh no!
Well, got to stop getting drunk every night, my man.
That's what the funny thing is. It's like I don't drink or smoke, and so it's because I don't eat healthy. That's my assumption. But
the rest of us with all these vices are completely fine, and then one dude that has no vices.
It's always how it happens, though.
Having liver problems.
That is how it happens.
Dutch Butters drained a fifth this morning.
Speaking of unhealthy, Tom Conders Jr. is not here today, so he's too busy eating cereal and getting ready to celebrate Father's Day tomorrow.
With a healthy liver.
With a healthy liver, yeah. So all hail Tom Conders Jr. He loves turtles, and we love him, so he will be missed. And I know that the thumbnail said that Mr. Reagan would be joining us, but again, he's busy fighting the communists out there, doing all the riots. So I don't know when or if he will be joining us today. He told me he would. So I take him at his word, but he may come in like, he's like, oh, I thought it was like 3:00 instead of 1:00.
Yeah, we have a lot of problems with those East Coasters with that. So
yeah, exactly. But we love Mr. Reagan, and hopefully he will show up at some point during the live stream.
Have you ever noticed that East Coasters don't believe in time zones?
I know, right?
It's definitely an East Coast thing. There's always a problem with people over there that think the whole center of the world revolves around the Eastern Standard Time Zone.
I've done a lot of live streams, and like, it's always that way.
Always.
The time is always fluid with them.
Unless you're Odin, then you're okay. But
well, that's also because I was born and raised in Central Time, and I have lived in like almost every time zone. So I lived in, people forget this, I lived in Los Angeles for about 9 months. So I lived that West Coast lifestyle for a bit. The time zones suck there because you're having, as you said, you're having to put up with everyone else who thinks the world just revolves around them.
Yeah.
Well, also, ironically, when Mr. Reagan was living in Bali, he was on time.
Yeah, that's funny.
Wow.
The minute he moves back to the East Coast, he's just like, fuck it. I'll
Yeah.
just whenever. Yeah, so like hopefully he will join us so that we're not liars with our thumbnails out there. But want to give a big shout out to everyone who's been gifting new memberships. Our goal is to hit 10 new memberships this live stream. So hopefully we can hit that goal set by Dutch Butters himself. So don't disappoint Dutch Butters. Let's hit those 10 new gifted memberships.
Yeah.
Also, guys, we are on the road to 25,000 subs, and we would like to hit that by the end of the year. So if you haven't subscribed already, please do so. And if you like the show and think that you might know someone else who likes it, please share it with them and encourage them to become subscribers to the Salty Nerd podcast. Speaking of which, Dutch, you want to tell people about Salty Nerd Discord?
No, why do you always do this to me? It's saltynerddiscord.com. It's where we go over there and we talk about stuff and things and video games and movies and television shows. It's a fun little community. It's really dominated by the gaming crowd right now, but we do have some people over there that are diehard old school entertainment guys. So yeah, come join us. It's fun. Good crew.
And I always do it to you every week, so you'd think you'd be prepared by now.
No, I'm never going to be prepared, man. Never. It's not how I roll. So,
all right, guys. Also want to give a big shout out to Mephisto's movie reviews. He does the Real McCoy podcast right after we're done. Although with all the stuff going on in Israel right now, I don't know if he's sticking to his regularly scheduled programming, but hopefully he is, and you guys can check him out on replay or right after the show is over. But if you really want to check out something cool right as the show ends, check out The Brain Show, which starts almost immediately after we're done. Brian just has to wear an adult diaper and do his business and then go right into the live streaming.
Yep.
Brian, what's going on today on The Brain Show?
From Los Angeles to Tel Aviv, the world's on fire, my friend. And we're
Minnesota?
talking about the riots. We actually live here, so all of those extreme a-holes telling you that it's peaceful and it's no big deal and it's only a tiny part of LA, either they're totally lying, or they're drinking the Kool-Aid, because that is just not true whatsoever. So this massive psyop has just taken over downtown LA, and everyone's acting like it's no big deal. It is a big deal.
And you guys are going to talk about it.
That's right.
I forgot all about it after yesterday because the Middle East blew up. So there's no more riots because there's missiles flying over there.
That's true.
Supposedly. Anyway, I want to give a big shout out to our top contributors, Scotty Dub and Made You Say Butts. Scotty Dub is still sitting pretty at the top of the leaderboard, so really appreciate his support. Mexican Iron Man is also our most consistent contributor. I haven't seen him in the chat today, though, so he might not be here, unfortunately. And also want to give a big shout out to Jillian H., the artist formerly known as Jillian N., Major Chai Chai, and Eric Winberg. These guys are always in chat, giving us gifted memberships. Speaking of which, Jillian H. dropped her 5 Salty Nerd gifted podcast memberships. Thank you so much, Jillian.
Yeah.
And Aaron Charman with 1 Salty Nerd podcast membership. Thank you so much for that. So we're up to 6. We just need 4 more to hit Dutch Butter's goal. And before we get into the topics for today, guys, Jeremiah Hembry, member for 4 months, says, please talk about the new Wonder Woman movie and who could play her. So for those of you who don't know, basically James Gunn announced that they are making a Wonder Woman movie. He's in the middle of writing it. But Dutch, who do you think should play Wonder Woman?
Zendaya, my friend, Zendaya.
Yes,
hands down.
Zendaya.
There's no other actress. Zendaya.
Yeah, exactly.
For sure.
Grace Caroline Curry, and I literally put up a video about 5 minutes ago on my DC channel as to why that's the case.
Who's Caroline Curie?
It's the chick from the Shazam movies.
Oh, the who played like Femme
Grace
Shazam.
Bolton. Yeah.
I think she'd be pretty good.
She would.
Odin, do you have any thoughts on who could play Wonder Woman?
Honestly, I don't. I really have no care for the DCEU at all.
Those are fighting words, Aaron.
I'm being honest, like, because Snyder did so much damage, like he's poisoned the well so much, and everything surrounding the marketing for Superman has just not had me any more interested in it. So I'm hoping it blows everybody away. I really want it to succeed because I would love to be able to like be like, oh man, y'all were right to be so optimistic towards it. I just have no reason at this point to have any optimism towards anything James Gunn is doing with this.
Well, with that attitude, it's not going to do well. So it's your.
I just
it's your
said that
fault.
I hope it does.
Your fault. Yeah, but you just before that you said
Odin's
I don't
fault.
care about it. So
Yeah, because
whatever.
I don't. I can't make myself care about something. That's their job. That's their job in marketing this movie. And instead of having the stupid, teeth flying out of, so stupid.
Oh my god.
Well, I know she's a little bit older, but I've always been a big fan of Kate Beckinsale playing Wonder Woman. So I think she'd probably do a good job. But again, they're probably looking for like a Zendaya aged actress.
Yeah,
out there.
the age would be the issue there. Because, what's her name? Not D'Alessandro. She's known as having like eyes. Like her eyes are like always very like striking. She was in the Lightning Thief series.
Yeah, Alexandra Delasario or something.
Delasario,
like
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. No,
She has like I think she has the look for it, but she might be on the quote older side. Again,
she's
depending on
definitely
what-
got the assets.
Oh,
as we
Lord.
like to say. Anyone saw her in True Detective knows what I'm talking about.
Oh gosh. Y'all disgust me.
Yes.
You brought it
indeed.
up, Odin.
Hey guys, you know what else disgusts me is Marvel and the Thunderbolts. So basically, I don't know if everyone heard about this, but the Thunderbolts recently ended their theatrical run. They gave it a good shot, but apparently they lost net $50 million for Marvel. And what makes this interesting is that basically Thunderbolts was part of like the new strategy that Marvel's been rolling out of quality over quantity. And it was very well reviewed, whereas all the other Marvel films that failed to meet expectations had very bad reviews. So like Ant-Man, Quantumania, the Marvels, all those types of movies, Captain America, Brave New World. Basically, they got slammed by the critics, and so they could say like, well, it wasn't a very good movie because of critics, therefore it fell short at the box office. But this movie had a lot of critical support and it had a lot of good word of mouth, apparently, and yet it still came up $50 million short. And so people are like, well, this means that the shine is off Marvel, and they only have to pivot to big team up movies with established characters. They can't do like any of these like standalone kind of lower tier character movies anymore, like Guardians of the Galaxy, and expect it to be profitable. But I want to throw this to Odin because he is our box office guru, and Odin's been calling this pretty much since the movie debuted that it was going to underperform. So Odin, what's your take on Thunderbolts losing Marvel $50 million?
Well, there's a couple of things here. So first, it actually hasn't ended its theatrical run. This happens a lot when like the articles will come out and say, oh, the studio has finished the run or whatever. It's still out in over 900 screens, and it still has numbers reporting as of yesterday. So they are still technically making money, though it's very, very, very minimal at this point. What's also interesting is that when the film first debuted, though the opening weekend wasn't very good, the word of mouth made it seem like the film might have actually done better than it actually has. Like early tracking based off of its opening and based off of the positive reviews that it got from a lot of people, it actually seemed like it had a chance of surpassing the box office of the Captain America movie. The big issue, of course, though, is that it costs $180 million. They spent at least $100 million on their marketing because Disney at least spends that much on their marketing for every single movie. And so the other issue with the article is that it didn't lose $50 million. It's lost over $100 million, actually, at this point, because we remember that in today's world, you have to make around 3 times your budget in order to break even, especially when you're making a lot more money internationally, where you get much less back in return. You only get about 40% of the box office, with the exception of China, where you only get 25% of the box office back. And you only get 55% roughly of the domestic box office. So it still equates to about $100 million worth of losses, which, let's be fair, is actually not as bad as it could have been and not as bad as Disney has done in the past. Let's just say that the massive budget of Captain America: Brave New World has that as a much bigger box office loser than Thunderbolts will be. And so by the end of the run of Thunderbolts, it still has money coming in. I wouldn't be surprised if it's like a little bit underneath 100 million in losses. It's still a lot. And they're not going to make money back after the fact because, sure, they might have some Blu-ray sales, maybe some VOD sales, probably not $100 million worth, but they're going to eventually put it onto their streaming service, which means that they're just going to give it to themselves. Now, I'm sure Tony at Deadline is going to, next year, when the numbers are reported, say, oh, yeah, well, they made X amount from streaming, because they're going to claim that they made X amount of money for giving it to themselves, right? For one company giving it to another company that's within the entire Disney umbrella, right? Picking it from one pocket, putting in the other. Disney is notorious for doing this stuff, right? That's not how math works. That's not how numbers work. That is still them not actually making any real raw money from that. So it's really not all that surprising, though. The film, though it was better received by a lot of people, I think even some people here enjoyed it. It clearly has not brought back anybody to the franchise. Even did worse than Captain America, which was also universally panned to a much larger degree than Thunderbolts was. So it's interesting that the movie that did better word of mouth wise actually still ended up doing worse box office.
Yeah, and Dutch, one of the interesting things here is that, so like Marvel's new strategy of quality over quantity, they still are doubling down on the whole girl boss thing, though. Like you have the backup Black Widow leading this movie, and as much as people like Florence Pugh, I don't think anyone actually likes that character in particular. You also have Ghost, who was the villain of another Ant-Man movie that nobody showed up to watch, and Taskmaster, who was the femme Taskmaster, and all this other stuff. So Marvel still seems to be thinking that the going forward with the girl bosses like Sue Storm is going to be the leader of the Fantastic Four and all this other stuff is the way to go. And audiences just keep telling them, hey, we want more traditional superhero fare because we're dudes and that's what we like. So why do you think that Marvel just refuses to change strategies?
I don't know why they don't just change strategies, but I'm not a Marvel executive. This movie did poorly because it's got a bunch of characters that nobody's ever heard of or cares about. And that's the bottom line. There's nothing else to that. It's D-rate heroes in a top tier summer blockbuster movie. What did they think was going to happen? There's no Spider-Man. I say this every week. There's not Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman in a DC movie. It's not going to make a lot of money. If it's not Spider-Man or X-Men or Captain America or Iron Man or something, it's not going to make any money. And I don't mean the new Black Captain America. I mean old Captain America. So they've just got to figure out how to make lower budget movies if they're going to continue to push D tier heroes on us and then want us to go to the movies and expect us to watch and enjoy them. That's all. It's a really simple formula, and I don't know why they can't figure that out. So, what else is there? It's not hard. It's not hard.
Well, Brian, to Dutch's point, when Marvel first started making movies, all their big names were already licensed out, so they didn't have them. So they took what was traditionally like B or C tier heroes like Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, stuff like that, and then blew them up into A-list style characters. And then they even took C-list characters like Guardians of the Galaxy and blew them up to A-list level characters. And so that's been kind of Marvel's MO, where they take characters like Dutch says, like D-level characters, and then kind of raise them up by putting a lot of time, effort, and movies into them. Why do you think that strategy is not working anymore?
Because the characters that they're trying to raise up are boring. Unfortunately, I was one of the people that said Thunderbolts wasn't a bad movie. It wasn't a bad movie. That doesn't mean it was a good movie either. It was just sort of, even if the characters were interesting in their character development, and the actors were good actors, the actual characters were just not very interesting. I don't even think any of them really have superpowers. And the one that does have superpowers is sort of boring, because he doesn't really know how his superpowers work, and it's all about depression and his internalized struggle, and it's just it lacks the flair of a superhero movie.
You know, when Guardians of the Galaxy came out, they had that huge marketing push with the old school music soundtrack, and it had that James Gunn humor, and there was something special about Guardians of the Galaxy, and this movie just doesn't have that. There wasn't.
Yeah,
I guess
they might not have superpowers, bro, but they were in space. There was all
Right.
sci-fi with sci-fi guns, and it was fantastical. Like the
Right.
Thunderbolts is not. Like they're using machine guns and they're driving motorcycles. Cool. Nothing necessarily wrong with that, but then if you look at it, Thunderbolts actually doesn't have a lot of action.
there's
So like compare that to an action film. There's not like a lot of action in Thunderbolts.
And it's
Well,
not a bad movie.
But what I'm saying
It's
is,
not a bad movie. It's not a good movie.
Kadish was trying to tell us that they wanted to pull the same kind of thing that they did with Guardians of the Galaxy, and they if they did, they completely failed because the marketing wasn't there. There wasn't that soundtrack. It wasn't you. To this day, when I hear doom 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 doom,
Yeah.
I immediately think Guardians of the Galaxy.
Me too. Yeah.
And that's the issue,
and
though.
that's the movie. That's why that movie got people like my wife and my kids in it, and it got them interested to go see it because it had a viral marketing campaign. It had Chris Pratt being funny. It had, I am Groot. It had all that stuff in it that made people interested in wanting to go see it. This movie, it was a flat line. It's just a bunch of nonsense that people didn't care about. It's just, it wasn't there. It wasn't there.
And I'm glad that y'all mentioned that too, because if you think about it, Disney's been chasing Guardians since 2014. They've been trying to recapture that, and they just haven't been able to do it. Like we could talk about Infinity War, we could talk about like their big box office hits, right? But they've been really trying to recreate that magic, and it just hasn't happened. Volume 2, Volume 3, neither of them were able to hit that same type, right? Because even with people that liked it, because I think most people do like the Guardians films, I think universally everyone say none of them match that first one.
Right.
None of them quite match the rewatchability of that first one, and they've been chasing that ever since. And that's actually, it might be part of the problem, is because they're trying to chase it, and the fact is that when you're trying to make it happen, it's likely not going to happen. Like that's just kind of the way that nature works, right? If you're trying to replicate the same thing over and over again, you can only, one, do that so many times, and also two, it kind of takes away from, hey, it was a perfect number of things that all happened to go right simultaneously by a lot of talented people, and unfortunately those same people that they're relying on, they don't have that same magic anymore because they've kind of gotten caught into the studio system. They've kind of gotten pulled into the big money, right? I mean, the whole concept of the Superman, for instance, it's not known as Superman, it's known as James Gunn's Superman, right? Because James Gunn's ego is really the bigger story when it comes to this movie. More people are talking about James Gunn than they are talking about the movie, it seems sometimes. And so I think that is a part of like what Marvel has really been struggling with, is that they've been chasing that Guardians magic, and they're just not going to find it if they keep chasing it the way they do.
Well, you know who hasn't been struggling, guys, is Tom Conders Jr.
Oh, I have been. You have no idea.
I thought he wasn't going to be here today.
Yeah,
Is
me
this,
too.
is this AI Tom bot? I don't trust you anymore, Matt. So
I'm sorry, Dutch. I can't do that.
Well, we welcome Tom to the show. It's always good to have him on board. Tom, do you have any insights into the $50 million loss that supposedly Thunderbolts is going to be throwing Marvel's way?
Yeah, fuck around and find out.
Yeah,
That's it?
That's pretty much it.
That's what happens when you make everything about girl bosses. I mean, when you basically alienated your core demographic and tried to go after a demographic that doesn't give a shit about what you're doing, congratulations. You played yourself. So, the Marvel Cinematic Universe is pretty much all but dead. Fantastic Four is going to be the final nail in the coffin, probably. Sure, Doomsday might sell some tickets, but it's a walking corpse at that point.
Yeah,
Let's
you
be
can only
real.
resurrect Robert Downey Jr. so often.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Is that all
right,
you guys
well-
have talked about so far is Marvel?
Yep.
That's it.
But
we just started.
you know what we're going to be talking about now, speaking of resurrections, is Warner Brothers and how they're splitting up into two different companies. And guys, we've been talking about this for a couple shows now, where the rumor was that Warner Brothers was going to be splitting off into two separate companies, and eventually those rumors proved to be true. And I know that Brian from the Popcast is especially excited to talk about it, but I just want to give a quick breakdown for the audience in case you guys don't follow this stuff as closely as we do. Basically, Warner Brothers was going through a bit of a credit crunch because their credit score got downgraded, mostly due to the fact that their primary income stream was cable TV stations, cable TV networks. And because cable TV is slowly dying, basically their credit rating got downgraded because their cash flow has like a timer on it, basically. So what they decided to do was spin off into two different companies. One company which has all the cable properties in it, and the other company has all the prestige properties like DC, HBO, all this other stuff, all the streaming stuff. And the idea here is that the main company is going to be extremely valuable, so people are going to invest in it. And the more riskier company, which is the company with all the dying cable channels in it, will be kind of like be able to be better managed and will handle all the debt that Warner Brothers has accumulated, so that the other company can kind of get higher values. And this is coming right as basically Universal Comcast has announced that they're doing the exact same thing. And what's interesting is that both of these companies are kind of doing the same thing that Viacom did decades ago when they split up into CBS and Viacom. And they're following the same strategy, but that strategy actually didn't work out at all for Viacom. In fact, every Star Trek fan knows that that pretty much ruined the Star Trek franchise, because you had TV rights and film rights separated. You had J.J. Abrams, who was trying to do like the film stuff, and he was hamstringed. Then you had the people trying to do the TV stuff, and they were hamstringed. And basically the two companies that used to be one were just fighting over the rights that they used to own unilaterally, and it ruined that franchise. And so like there's the potential that that could happen in this scenario as well. But what's even weirder about the whole Warner Brothers thing is basically Discovery came in and bought Warner Brothers from AT&T and merged it with their Discovery properties. And now they're demerging everything, and they're changing the names from HBO Max to Max and then back to HBO Max. And it seems like nobody really knows what the hell's going on over there. So Brian, since you are a shareholder and you seem particularly excited about this news, I wanted to get your perspective on Warner Brothers splitting up into two separate companies.
Yeah, I mean, I bought the stock when it was at its bottom, basically, and it's risen to a little past 10, which is already about 30% increase. And if it splits, it's gonna take a downswing, but it's gonna go back. It's gonna go back up to where its bottom was, which is gonna effectively net me 50% profit. So it's good for me. More than likely. As far as the split goes, I think that it's probably a good call. I know some of the people on the panel don't believe this, but I think the DC is going to be very successful. And I think it's going to be good for Warner Brothers to just be able to ride that wave unencumbered by the debt, So I'm not sure about all the legal stuff and all the business stuff, but all I really want is a healthy DC, and if that means that this split is good for that, then I'm hoping that's the case.
All right.
Because
Well,
the Discovery stuff is like that whole catalog is so burdensome. It's not in the same vein as what HBO Max was made famous for.
yeah, the thing that made Discovery profitable was the fact that it cost them like next to nothing to make all these like reality shows, and then they were like extremely profitable, especially with ad supported stuff. And so like spinning off all the Discovery channels and along with like the cable channels and things like that, they can control prices a little bit better and possibly increase profitability to pay down some of that debt. But Tom Conders Jr., I know that you've had very outspoken opinions about David Zaslav and his prowess in the business and stuff like that. So what's your take on splitting off into two separate companies with Warner Brothers?
Yeah, after talking to a few people and Mikey and a few others, I've come to the conclusion that, yeah, basically it was like, well, they're going to gonna downgrade our stock anyway. Fuck it, let's do it. So that's kind of what they're doing. And at this point, how I see this is a little bit different than Paramount. Paramount did it in the height of cable, right, and satellite television. Like, it was so stupid when they did it. And you're right, like, they had so many properties underneath there that were kind of split up. Because it wasn't just Star Trek, is my understanding. You also had, like, The Odd Couple and Mission Impossible and a few others that fell into that same region where if they were originated on television and then they did movies of them, then there was a split. I don't think Warner Brothers is going to have that happening here. I think this is mainly just them taking a look at the broad kind of view of things, because David Zaslav has kind of been ahead of the curve for a while now. Now, you mentioned Discovery Plus. The funny thing was before David Zaslav even came in the picture over at Warner Brothers, he was somebody on my radar, because I would ask all my normie friends and my family members, like, what streaming services you got, what do you watch on them, stuff like that. And the one that kept popping up, and I apologize if you've heard this already, but the one that everybody kept mentioning that they had was Discovery Plus. And when I'd be like, Discovery Plus, you know, I'd scrunch my face up at them and they'd be like, yeah, we got to have it. And it was that clicked with me, that we got to have it. And it's like, what do you mean you got to have it? And they'd be like, yeah, if we don't, then we're going to miss the 90 Day Fiance stuff and this, that, and the other, and the wifey will kill me, you know, like stuff.
Yeah, my parents had it. They were all into that. That was like their favorite.
So David had like the market cornered on that aspect. So I understand why Warner Brothers went to him. It made complete sense to me, because he's also somebody who's not afraid to kind of throw the baby out with the bathwater if shit ain't working. Right? Like he'll just toss it out. Like, look at Discovery in general. Like, the only thing I think that's still left there from the old days is Shark Week, because that was like the only thing I think that actually made them any money or any ratings. So at this point, he's just, you know, he changed Court TV to True TV. He changed, you know, he's got a lot of enemies. And I understand that. And the same thing with Warner Brothers. He's done some stupid things at Warner Brothers, but at the same time, he has brought the company back from the brink of extinction. Like, people don't understand how bad a shape Warner Brothers was in before Zaslav came in. What Kalar had done to the company, what AT&T had done to the company. They had Toby Emmerich running this company into the ground for almost 2 decades, right? You had so many people spending so much money, they didn't even know where it was coming from, right? Like, they were just spending money left and right, left and right, left and right. Well, that's because they had all the DVD money. When that ran out, though, that's when they all got desperate, and they're like, well, we need some of that streaming money from Netflix, right? So that's where they all got greedy and stupid. But David Zaslav is at least somebody where, like you just said, Brian, your stock has gone up.
Right.
He is like he was like Chapek was for Disney. Like, the stock went up, things were going well, but because he doesn't go with the mind think, the hive mind, right? They don't like him. Because he's willing to ask CNN, what have you done for me lately? They don't like him. Right? When he's the guy who comes in and says, we need to be a little bit more neutral, they don't like him. The people over at HBO fucking hate him. Yep. And I don't know why. I can't come up with any good reason why. And you even ask anybody who has ZDS online what their problem is, 9 times out of 10, they come up with 2 or 3 things that aren't even really reasons. Like, they're like, oh, he won't let us see the Acme versus Coyote movie. It's like, well, it's coming. He didn't stop anybody from buying it. They were just lowballing him, like I told you guys.
Right.
Same thing with like the Batgirl thing. He canceled it. Well, you're welcome, because guess what? That was the de facto Batman Beyond movie that was setting up Batgirl and Supergirl to take over the DC universe. You're welcome. Like, there's all these things that people come after him with, and it's like, sorry, you didn't get to see the shitty Batgirl movie?
Yeah.
That wasn't even finished?
Oh, no.
Like, what the
everyone
fuck?
leans on that stupid Batgirl movie. It was a bad play. It would have cost more money to release than to actually keep, and it would have hurt the brand. And that's the most important thing. It would have hurt the brand.
It was the sequel to The Flash. That's the other thing people don't understand, right? Like, this picked up right where The Flash left off, with Batgirl coming in to take over for Batman, Michael Keaton's Batman, and then you have Supergirl there, the Sasha, whatever her name was, as the new Superman, because remember, in The Flash, they killed Superman.
Right. Yeah, people don't get it. Like, that was the worst thing. If you're a true DC fan, that Batgirl movie was the worst possible idea.
I get it. You may like the directors behind it, and they've made some good Bad Boys movies, and they were able to talk to Critical Drinker and get him convinced that this movie was good, but I'm not convinced.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. There's nothing that's going to convince me that this movie was going to be any good.
I don't believe you. And there's no way for us to actually refute what you're saying, because we're never going to fucking see it.
Exactly.
Wow.
Well, Odin, one of the things that's kind of getting like left out of the story is that NBC Universal is also kind of following suit.
Bingo.
In fact, Warner Brothers announced that they were splitting after Universal. NBC said that they were going to do it, so they're kind of like following suit. But the difference is that NBC Universal, so they have like a little bit more diversity in their portfolio. Like they have theme parks and like all this other stuff. They have cable companies, not just cable channels, and they're also pretty aggressive with going after the licensing for like sports rights and stuff like that to stream those. And they also have like Peacock, which has been one of the only profitable streamers for like a studio since the beginning. So they have a lot of kind of like cachet in terms of like, okay, like our split makes sense because we're going to blow up both companies. Whereas with Warner's, it seems like they're splitting up in order to offload a bunch of debt, to stuff that they know is dying. And also Disney kind of chimed in and said that they're unlikely to do what Warner Brothers and Comcast is doing because they actually want to acquire more TV and streaming and cable assets and stuff like that. And we all know how well Disney has been run lately. So the question becomes like, is that a good idea? So what's your take on all this, Odin?
Yeah, I mean, this is a bit beyond my own expertise as I focus pretty much only on box office data as it comes in. But I mean, it has to be a good move at this point, just to diversify things, just to change things up a little bit, because as was mentioned, with the credit rating downgrade, with the fact that when it comes to a lot of their film releases, they've obviously had some big wins, but they've also had some not so big wins either. I think that it probably is overall a good idea. Again, just from an outsider's perspective on this, because again, I don't really have any expertise on it necessarily. So that would really be all I have to say about it, because I can't really add anything else to the discussion.
Well, do you think it will help Warner Brothers and Universal, or is it going to hurt them?
I mean, it could go either way. It really depends on who they put in. Leadership is a key thing here, and that's something that Disney has really been struggling with. Is that the leadership they have in pretty much all of their areas has just not been very good, right? Kevin Feige, ever since he's been on his own, has not really been moving forward, right? There was a peak that was reached, and it has not gone back in the other direction. You can't really point to a Deadpool Wolverine as the example of, things are getting back. Things are getting better again, because okay, let's look at what this year has, right? We've got Captain America, we've got Thunderbolts, and then Fantastic Four. Arguably could be the better performing of the three films, right, that they would have had so far this year. But we're talking about maybe getting $500 million worldwide, which based off of what likely is the budget for that movie is not going to be enough to really make that much of a statement. And so you look at the people in charge of Marvel and in charge of Star Wars, obviously, with Kathleen Kennedy, and it's the people who are in charge that are running things into the ground. And so whether or not it's successful with Warner Brothers, whether or not it's successful with that company, is going to depend on who's in charge. It's going to depend on the decisions that they make, the projects that they greenlight. And the one thing and the one problem that they don't have as much, but pretty much every studio does have to some degree, is the massive overspending, right? Disney is notorious for the overspend, right? When their projects cost at minimum $150 million to $200 million, like just by proxy at this point, that's a problem. We have these other studios where you still have like $100+ million budgets on movies that probably shouldn't cost as much as that, and they're overspending on marketing for. Those are the things that they need to start tamping down on, because at this point there's an audience that you probably have permanently lost, that are just not going to come back to the theaters. And because of that, they need to start thinking differently. And it can't just be a focus on streaming, because they ultimately are likely to lose a lot of money there, as we've seen with a lot of these companies have been losing money. But they have to be much smarter with their decision making. I think budgets is a huge thing for them to kind of try to fix in the future.
Yeah, and Dutch, speaking of streaming, so like all these Hollywood studios, they're kind of lumping their streaming assets into the top tier companies that they're splitting off on. And but the king of all the streaming is Netflix. But recently Bob Iger came out and said, eventually Disney Plus is not going to be reporting subscriber numbers just like Netflix. What do you think about that?
Oh God.
Because they know this thing's a bust.
Yeah, they're not gonna tell us the numbers. They don't. Why would they want to tell us how poorly they're doing?
They're not good unless something's doing well. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing to report there. It's like we don't really want to tell you how many people didn't watch the show that we spent billions of dollars making for you all. So yeah, I mean, that wasn't surprising to me at all when I saw that little blurb in that article about them eventually not telling us how many people aren't watching it. So yeah.
No, but Odin hit the main point here. The main point is, the woke stuff aside, the main point is that A, it's costing too much, and B, you're not creating a new audience. They think they are with all this LGBTQ DEI nonsense.
That's so over. It's
not, right? Like the girl boss thing is a problem. Look at the Ballerina, Furiosa, all these other things. Even though these two movies that I just mentioned supposedly are good and got good ratings, it doesn't matter because the audience has said, fuck you, I'm not going to see this because girl boss. And now you've got the How You Train Your Dragon chick out there saying that she's a badass girl boss bitch. And then you got all the problems with Marvel. The audience isn't going to show up.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I think there's something else going on. I mean, I want to go watch Ballerina, but I'm at this weird point where I just don't know if I want to take the time and the money to go watch it. I don't know if it's worth the time and effort to go spend 2 hours at the theater just to see it when it's going to be on, Peacock in 3 weeks.
We've had that conversation, right? Like it's
not
if it's not an event movie,
right?
Then like,
yeah. I mean, I went and watched Furiosa.
Hyper interested in,
I went and watched Furiosa at the theaters because I was anticipating a 2-hour argument with Tom on the next Saturday morning show, which I never got. But and honestly, Wick 4 kind of ruined the Wick movies for me. It's such a piece of shit film that it kind of lost any hyper interest I had in the following Wick films going forward. So there's no hype for Ballerina for me. When there kind of maybe was before. It's a bad movie. If they had made the movie about the stairwell and how it kicks everybody's ass, that might have been more interesting. I would have probably liked that film.
If it helps, I think the parts with John Wick take place between the stairwell part.
Oh, okay.
Like he stops falling for 5 minutes just to go be in the movie.
But no, I think maybe, and this is something maybe we can talk about some other time. But I just think the theater audience is changing. I mean, we all talked about how if things don't change in the industry, people are just going to quit going to movies. And I think people are there. I think we're done going to movies unless there's a really good reason to go. And
that's the second thing that Odin's right about is this new generation doesn't have anything.
No.
Right? Like they don't have anything new. That's why Minecraft did so well, because that's one of the few things that they've put out there that this younger generation feels like theirs. Right? Like they're not good. Sure, they might watch Harry Potter, but it's still their parents' franchise, right? DC, Marvel, they're still their parents, grandparents, great-grandparents' franchise, right? Like we're getting to that point where Batman is about like Robin Hood.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's also important to point out that Hollywood has forgotten the formula for success when it comes to at least action movies or like science fiction, like genre films, right?
Right.
Which is basically like they failed to understand that the primary demographic for a lot of these genre films is men. Like women tend to like comedies, romance, like lighthearted stuff. Men tend to like explosions and fast-paced stuff, science fiction, starships, fantasy, all that crap. And the women who like that, it's a smaller crossover, right? So the idea here that and this especially flies in the face of the whole representation angle, where it's like, oh, people only want to go see movies that have somebody who looks like them starring in it, right? Where it's like, okay, well, where are all the movies with the straight white males starring in them? Because in the 80s, the action movie formula was big muscular dudes fucking shit up, and then you'd have a hot chick in there that they would like hook up with, and that was like enough to get people into the theaters time and time again, right? Of course,
I walked back in on this. Goodness me.
Yeah, it's a simple formula. And the thing with like Ballerina, for instance, like it could be a good movie, and Ana de Armas is gorgeous, but dudes will wait until video to watch like the action chicks, right? It's the same thing like it was in like the 80s and 90s.
sorry to interrupt you here, but the dudes are the ones who are actually going to see this. If you actually go to look at the demographic breakdown, it's the same thing as Furiosa. The women are the ones not showing up. Odin, I see you shaking your head because you know I'm right.
Yes,
That's the thing.
Because
Yeah,
in
yeah,
general, just to give some numbers on this. In general, it's about a 60-40 split on most movies, right? Most movies, 60% of the audience is men, 40% of the audience is women. For this one, for the opening weekend, according to Movio.co, 70% of the audience was male. So even more men showed up to this than women. And so that's why they have to stop trying to make movies with the mindset of we're going to bring more women in, because they're still taking male franchises, right?
Yeah,
and again, women will go see it, but 30% is not going to be enough to make up.
The point I was also trying to make is that men will show up in far fewer numbers to go to the theater to see it, whereas they'll wait until like VHS or streaming or DVD, like, you know, historically, where it's like, you know, nobody went to see Cynthia Rothrock in a fucking movie theater, right? They waited until her movies hit video or cable or something like that and watched them and be like, okay, yeah, Cynthia Rothrock, yeah, cool, whatever.
I thought that was a character on the Flintstones.
No, unfortunately
There's a real
not.
person named that?
Yeah, you never watched Cynthia Rothrock?
I've never heard that.
You're totally blowing my brain here. I just thought that was like, it sounded like
Cynthia
a character on the
Rothrock.
Flintstones. Yeah.
A
Okay.
Rothrock. Also,
Who
in
the
the
hell is
chat,
Cynthia
I stepped
Rothrock?
away. In the chat, I see Victor Fontaine is saying, did you hear that? John Wick 4 was pizza. No, John Wick 4 was awesome. I don't care what any of y'all say. It was fantastic. And
It
actually,
wasn't a good
Ballerina was fine too, right? The
Ballerina
issue,
wasn't bad at all.
but I say Ballerina was fine
Yeah,
too.
nobody's saying that. Yeah.
Yeah, the
Didn't
issue.
say it wasn't. Didn't say it wasn't.
Okay. Well, I didn't know, but I will go back and
What
say no, John
I
Wick 4
said
was
was
fun.
what I said was I didn't like John Wick 4, which everybody knows.
Yeah.
And it kind of ruined my hype going forward for anything in the Wick franchise.
Yeah, the
But just
issue with
the ballerina movie, I was just kind of like, whatever. She's
And
probably going
honestly,
to fall downstairs.
John Wick
downstairs.
was actually the issue for the movie because of the timeline.
Yeah,
Bringing John Wick in as often as they did to do what he did in this movie, you're like, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense with what was supposed to be going on.
And that was probably part of the reshoots too. Like that's
Yeah.
the other problem, right? Like, look, if this movie was only $30-40 million, we wouldn't be having this conversation, right? That's the problem. And even though the movie may even be profitable at the end of the day, because Lionsgate, the way they run things over there, they probably pre-sold this in every region outside the U.S. and it's already paid for. Plus, they sold it to Netflix or Amazon or whoever they have a deal with. So it's probably paid for. That's not even the problem. The problem is it's just like a bad restaurant, right? Like you go in once, you have a bad experience, you might give them a second shot, but after that second shot, you're not going back, right? Like it doesn't matter if somebody comes to you and says it's completely new management or they've got this great new menu item you got to try or they've cleaned up their act. It don't matter. You're still resistant to go in. And that's what we're seeing here with things like Furiosa and Ballerina, even though under normal circumstances, they probably would have been successful. But the problem is we have been so inundated with girl boss bullshit for the past 2, 3, 4, 5 years now, at least, if not more, that the general audience is even saying nope. And the funny thing is, and that's the whole point, is that the women are rejecting it more than the men. So they can't even blame it on us anymore.
I have to turn in my card because I don't know who the fuck Cynthia Rothrock is. Okay.
I don't either, man.
Yeah, it's not,
So-
maybe put her up there with Mary Pebblestone and the rest of the Flintstones cast. Okay, guys.
Well, this
So-
goes all the way back to Rambo, right? Which is kind of funny because Andre
Cynthia
figured this
Roth?
out because Rambo came out near the same time as the remake of Charlie's Angels or this reboot or whatever the hell it is. And what was funny was more women went to see Rambo than went to see Charlie's Angels. More men went to see both, right, in both cases, but less women went to see Charlie's Angels, right? So even the women weren't showing up for Charlie's Angels.
Hey guys,
So
I
that's
got a
where we're
shocker
at.
for you. Ready? Women want to see handsome, sweaty, muscular men kicking ass.
They'd
Or
rather
Bar-
watch
or
old
Barbie.
Rambo.
And Barbie, yeah.
or Barbie.
Yeah.
They'd rather
Or
watch
Barbie.
old Rambo kicking ass than they would 3 young chicks.
It's not a shocker to me, bro.
No, not at all.
Not at all. Like,
Or-
not remotely.
Or the argument could also be made that men who are married or in relationships are more likely to bring their women to
That too. That too. That's a good argument. I'm sure there's a percentage of that as well. But
And the women aren't complaining. And once again,
Exactly. That's the thing,
But-
right?
look. Tulsa King's a very successful show. Stallone has proven that no matter how bad they try to take him down in Hollywood, his audience will show up.
100%.
So
I'll always show up to a Stallone project because it's Stallone. And he's great.
Yeah, but here's the thing: the '80s had the formula down. They knew how to get people in the theaters, and Hollywood's forgotten how to do that. They just have.
All you had to do was say, was Schwarzenegger or Stallone were going to blow some shit up, and we were there.
Oh, yeah,
it's not that hard. I feel like the formula is not that hard. I wonder if what are all the advisors in Hollywood doing? Like
they're all gay. That's the problem.
They're
bro.
activists. That's the issue. Like,
we already know how this works. We already know it works.
Look at Disney. They could literally make right now, like next year, they could have a Blade movie come out, spend less than $10 million to make it, and make bank on it just by following a basic formula.
Snipes is Blade.
It's insane that they are like leaving that money up, and the only reason why they would do that is because they're activists.
$1 billion movie.
It drives me nuts. It's such a simple concept. It's so cheap to do.
I love the story that Paul Chatto
tells
tells
with a
about
sword
this.
killing vampires. This is not hard.
Paul Chatto used to tell this story about this old producer in Hollywood he used to know that this is how they would run things. He'd go, "Hey guys, come here." And he'd bring in 3-4 guys into the room, and he'd have like a line of headshots or women full body shots up. And he'd go, "Which one's fuckable?" And they'd pick it. And then he'd do this. Now listen, he'd do the same thing with the ladies in the office. He'd say, "Hey ladies, come here." He'd bring in 3-4 of the secretaries and other ladies in the office. He'd be like, "Which one of these guys is fuckable?" And that's how he'd pick his stars. They have lost that. It's like, did you forget that's how Hollywood used to work?
So
we can go through like weeks and weeks of like reading and seeing if they have the right tone for the role and if they're good actors. Or
no, that's all you got to do.
Ready? What do you think? Are they effable? Okay,
that's all you got to do. Yeah. That's how Johnny Depp got us to be a star, because they laid him and 2-3 other pictures out on a table, and they asked Wes Craven's daughter and some of the other producers' daughters, which one of these guys is the cutest? And they all pointed right at Johnny Depp. And they said, "Why
Johnny
him?"
Depp next to Paul
he's
Giamatti.
dreamy,
like,
they all
oh
said.
My God, no.
Yeah, and what's funny is I got into a lot of trouble for criticizing Birds of Prey for getting rid of all the sex appeal that was necessary to attract the male demographic to that movie. And if you look at like the success of Suicide Squad with like Harley Quinn as the breakout, it was because they leaned into the sex appeal.
It was all Margot Robbie. Are you kidding? Yeah,
man, she's got those shorty shorts on. That's why we go watch that movie.
And then when Birds of Prey came out and they're wearing like fucking overalls and farm gear and like nobody's like showing anything even remotely feminine.
It was like an ad for performersonly.com.
I'm literally like, this movie is gonna flop because no dude wants to go see this movie, and like, everyone attacked me on the internet for being like a misogynist.
And I actually went to see it, and that movie made me feel like shit afterwards. Like, every man in that movie is a piece of shit, and the only one that isn't a piece of shit gets treated like shit, and that's the guy at the gas station. Like, that's the only guy in the movie, and then the old guy. I
legit don't even remember that movie.
Yeah,
I don't think
it's such a bad movie, and the whole joke revolves around a stupid gas station burrito and a
egg sandwich,
flash drive. Yeah,
dude, I'm a DC fanboy. I have like 3,000 comics, and I run a DC channel, and I don't think I watched that movie.
And the woman who wrote that is still writing.
The bottom line is for them. The bottom line is that the movie-going audience in this country are very easily entertained. Give us a movie about somebody killing somebody's dog, and his owner goes and kicks all their asses. That's all we want, right? I mean, it's really simple: hot chicks and revenge with a lot of really good action. It's a super easy formula. Vampires.
Well, I mean, my favorite story is the hero's journey. I love the idea of a redeemable hero that comes up, learns how to be the person that his family, his country, his whatever needs him to be, and sacrifices himself for the greater good. That's like the ultimate story. And for me, maybe it goes back to like the story of Jesus being the ultimate hero's journey. But I love the hero's journey. It's my favorite story, and I think it's the easiest story to tell. You get a likable figure, and you put him in a heroic position where he has to do the right thing, and give me that every single time. And if you add sex appeal to that, $1 billion movie.
All right.
Hollywood's forgotten the formula.
Sexy Jesus movie. That's what we need. Okay.
Sexy Jesus.
Let's go.
Rec thoughts for $5. So as lifelong movie nerds and as a filmmaker myself, at what point are we forced to say this era is over? We seem to be repeating our conversations.
It's getting there, RAK. I think that Hollywood's starting to learn a little bit.
Yeah. I think Superman's going to be awesome. I think we're going to see
hope
exactly what
so.
we want to see. And maybe I'm being optimistic because I want it so badly. But from everything I've seen, I think I think Odin is going to come on panel the week after that movie and be like, "You guys,
It was really good.
fucking right. It was awesome. I was excited. It was awesome. You're right, Brian. You're handsome. I love you. I gotta go."
I think.
So you're saying it's going to turn him gay?
Yeah. Well, no.
You're
Tom,
turning it
more
Odin's gay.
More gay.
I think the most optimistic take we can have is that it's going to be a very divisive film. That's what I think is the most optimistic take.
I honestly think that there's been so much scrutiny over this movie that I think there's going to be a large portion of the audience that's just going to go, it wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it was.
Yes,
Plus, the
that's true.
normies aren't having these conversations. That we
No,
No,
they're
they're
not.
not.
Yeah.
My
It's
kid,
like,
my
well,
kids, my
people
kid saw
need
the
to
trailer,
understand. People need-
and she came running to me with her phone on TikTok, like, "Dad, Dad,
Yeah.
did you get tickets?" I'm like, "Hey, calm down. Yeah, it did." Shit.
They're not making these movies for us YouTube nerds, okay?
No.
That's just the way it goes. We're not the audience that they're going for because we're going anyway. And they need to get people like Brian's wife and kids and my wife and my kids and people like that in the theaters. And when you can do
100%.
that, you're going to have a hit. So
Yeah. And in regards to Superman might be good, but James Gunn will still be a devil worshiper. Ain't that right, Odin?
Uh-huh.
Speaking of the
Is he
devil,
really, though?
did you guys know that AI is
Come
the devil
on.
and Disney is trying
that
to destroy
was a
them?
terrible transition, man.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I was
You,
gonna
you
say,
should probably
'cause
try again.
That was as forced as it can get.
That was awful.
That was
You know what else is awful? Disney and its fight against AI.
Well, not only that, didn't James Gunn kind of out Jared Leto years ago? So, I mean, look, if he really was that bad, do you think he'd out?
All I
somebody
know
who
is that he
did look-
dressed up like a priest to a Halloween party, and it was supposed to be a whole like, yes, I'm a
I'm still
priest, and there's
confused
a
by that.
child. There's someone who's dressed like a child next to me, and that thing.
Okay,
that
okay,
disgusted
stop
me.
a minute. Time out, because everybody keeps running with this as a party.
Yeah.
I did some research. I thought it was a music video. See, this is where I think people are twisting shits all the time. I don't know what is what.
Dude,
anymore.
I've seen way
No, it
worse
was a
costumes.
Halloween
man.
party. That they-
Listen, I've seen way worse costumes.
Guys,
Let's stop.
Because I've
fucking
seen the
guys.
music
girls.
video.
Guys, let's talk about this some other show. Right now, we're going to be talking about Disney trying to sue
Nobody
the
cares
shit
about
out
Disney.
of AI. Brian does. He's our biggest shareholder.
Right.
So,
Yeah, and how's that stock going, Brian?
Not great. Not great. I'm not doing
all right.
good.
So guys,
I'm feeling the
basically,
burn.
the most popular AI image generator is called Midjourney, and it is widely used by everyone who likes to do AI generated art and stuff like that. And Disney, along with a couple other studios, is basically saying like, hey, these guys are training on our content and they're creating copyright infringement, and we want to shut them down. And so Disney has entered officially into a lawsuit, but pretty much every AI company is being sued by the studio, so this isn't anything new. However, the difference is that Midjourney is kind of like a startup business. It's a very small company. It's not making billions of dollars. And so the idea that Disney could actually affect change by taking Midjourney down, or at least coming to some type of licensing deal with them or something like that, is very real. And all this started because basically you can go into Midjourney and say like, Yoda is drinking a coffee or Darth Vader is driving a car or whatever. And it generates perfect examples of Yoda and Darth Vader. And so they're
Almost
like,
perfect.
almost perfect. And they're like, they've stolen our IP and trained their AI on this, and therefore fair use is not invocable, and we want either money or we want to shut them down. And this is kind of the same thing that the studios did to YouTube way back in the day, which got the content ID and the copyright strikes and all that other stuff going over there. And so basically a lot of these AI studios are implementing some type of moderation to prevent IP theft and identity theft and things like that. However, there's also a parallel to Napster, where basically the music studios tried suing Napster out of existence, but the technology lived far beyond Napster.
Yeah,
where
that's exactly
where
what there is here, Matt.
Yeah. And basically AI, people forget that it's decentralized. So basically anyone with a computer in Alaska or the Antarctic can set up, like
Three of them back here.
an AI system, and the studios can't stop it, right?
Nope.
So a lot of people are looking at this as like Hollywood once again lashing out as a dying industry at technology, which is disrupting it. So Brian, why don't you give us your take on Disney's attempt to destroy AI by suing it out of existence?
They never learn, bro. They don't learn from their mistakes. Remember what happened when they tried to like stop technology from progressing by suing Napster, suing Pirate Bay, suing every single torrent program there was? What happened? Nothing. Those companies went out of business, and their code and their decentralized software and the whole torrent system moved to another website. And even worse, it got cloned 10 more times. Dude, if you take Midjourney down, you know what Midjourney does? They just put their model online on huggingface.com. Go check it out, guys. Huggingface.com. It's out there for everyone to say. You can go look at the Midjourney model now.
If you're putting me on some weird thing, I'm gonna be upset.
No, it's a real model site. It's called huggingface.com. There's a Midjourney clone up right now. You can download that into your own AI and your own Stable Diffusion. Either Comfy
AI community building of the future,
or SD13 or whatever, and you can have your own Midjourney on your computer free of charge. All Midjourney offers is the computer processing power, so you don't have to use your system to generate those images, right? And they have a model that's being trained, but that model is pretty much up to date on 500 websites like Hugging Face. So you take down Midjourney. Let's say you sue them out of existence. What happens? Their latest model goes public. It continues to be trained, and now 1,000 times 1,000 people are using it even more than they were when they were paying for it.
Okay, let me ask this question, or go down this little hole. We all have our phones, right? We all scroll on Instagram and TikTok and Twitter and all that kind of stuff. AI is taking over. I mean, I was scrolling just this morning, and my feed is filled up with Bigfoot and Yeti movies, and I mean, if you've seen those, they're brilliant, by the way.
Yeah, they're great.
Now you're getting ones like with Boba Fett and with the stormtroopers and all that kind of stuff, and these are made by just schmucks like you and me out there, you playing with AI tools. Now to be on the side of the studios a little bit, does Lucasfilm want people like you and me going out there and making content with stormtroopers and
tough shit? Shit,
bro, I'm with you, but is that what the stuff that they're trying to stop?
Yeah, maybe they don't, but tough shit.
I understand
technology
that.
moves.
I'm with you.
It's moving fast, and you cannot stop it. Though, you know what they should be doing?
I'm just playing devil's advocate a little bit.
They should get in bed with Midjourney. They should get in bed with Google instead of threatening them legally. They should be like, guys, how can we work together? We can give you a better tool. You can kick us down some money. No, but instead they go the same route they went with the torrent sites, with the Napster, with the Napster sites. Like someone said in the chat, Metallica looked a fool for what they did.
Napster bad, beer good.
Dude, every one of these companies, it's like they never learn. Technology moves, and they're trying to fight technology with lawsuits. Good luck.
Yeah. I mean, we all know where this is going.
Dude, I got an AI system right here. I named him after my brother. He used my brother's voice. I can make video. I can make images. I can generate anything. It's learning as we speak.
What happens?
And I'm just a scrub in a room in SoCal.
What happens when you and Matt put together an entire 5th season completed for these 5-year journey of Star Trek: The Original Series?
Yeah.
And you released 26 episodes, and they're all fantastic, and it's 100% generated by AI.
Yeah.
The studios don't make that. They're not going to get any money from that.
Yeah, you know what? Tough shit.
You know what I mean? But I'm just...
Tough shit. Make better
happening.
shit.
They're going to make shit. Ryan Johnson's movie is going to get completely decimated because Odin's going to make a new...
make better content, guys.
A new movie.
Utilize technology. I don't know what to tell you. Like, it's going to happen. 100%. Some clever dude out there with a lot of time and a lot of computing power is going to start generating episodes. Like,
You're-
it's going to
you're-
take scene by scene. They're going to have
you're-
to do some editing. There's going to be some work involved. It's not going to just be like a prompt, like, make me a great Star Trek episode. No, it's going to take a lot of effort. It's going to probably take someone months to make one episode. But it's going to happen, and people are going to be like, yo, this is better than the studio does. And that's just telling you right there. The studio sucks at doing their job anymore.
What happens when your gay friends make a new season of Golden Girls? You know.
Well, I've been
I'll
saying
watch
this
it.
for a while. This thing was going to come to a head when some fan turns around and makes like the Star Wars sequels better than Disney did with AI.
Yep.
Right. And
Yep.
what Brian just said, you have the same thing already with Star Trek. Notorious for going after fans for shit. So I wouldn't be surprised if that doesn't happen before too long. Look, I mean, they should have been thinking about this AI thing way ahead in advance. And you're right. They've always resisted technology. They did it all the way back with the VCR.
Look
How
at
did
this thing at the beginning of
they
the
did it
show.
with the VCR.
Kadish didn't ask my permission to ruin my likeness and face
Doesn't
and
have
voice
to.
to introduce him on the show every week as my greatest hero. And
Maybe you
and-
should have recorded a
mentor.
video and done it yourself. I'm just saying.
because maybe I disagree with everything that guy says.
Hey,
You know,
tough shit, bro.
so maybe
Move
I
with
can't
technology.
stand this
I
dude.
mean, it
over here.
opens up a whole can of worms, right? Like, I mean, we
No,
can
I'm
sit
with
here
you.
all day and debate.
And there's going to be bad actors making bad stuff for the wrong reasons. It's going to be 100%. But like the way to deal with AI is not to fight it in the courts. The way to deal with new technology, like the VCR, Tom, like you were saying, is not to fight it in the courts. The way it embrace it. Oh, you see something coming that is going to effectively change the industry? You should embrace it and actually try to work with it. They should be working with Midjourney, dude. License the characters to Midjourney and give them higher.
Have
give
you
them
not just
great
that?
characters.
I think the
Honestly,
future. I think the future of the industry is basically putting yourself into movies and TV shows, or your kids, or whatever. Like, because can you imagine your kid come home and you scan their face real quick with the phone, and you take a sample of their voice, and then you turn on Disney Plus, and then there they watch, like whatever the new Marvel movie is, and your kid is Iron Man.
Sounds great. I'd watch it.
Yeah, I mean,
That's the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Yeah.
agree with you, Brian. The studios, they need to.
And that's
they
how they
need
could
to, They need
embrace
to
it.
shit or
Yeah.
get off the pot. Basically, they need to embrace the tech and start utilizing it. And
I mean, that's the
you
only
know,
option, and it's gonna hurt.
all they can do.
There's gonna be like a growing pain. There always is with new tech. There's gonna be a growing pain where you're gonna lose. You might lose a little bit of money. You're gonna some stuff's gonna be created that you didn't like. That's gonna happen, 100%. But like trying to fight it the way they have every single time the industry changes with technology, every single time. Tom is totally right. Every single time they try to fight it, and they try to fight it legally, and every time they fail, and they end up adopting it anyways, and they look stupid in the process. And Disney is like the number one.
And even if they
repeater of
win,
this
it doesn't
offense.
matter because it's not going anywhere. It's just
No.
going to.
It's
take
decentralized.
It's just going to
you
go
know
a different path.
And it's crazy, like, oh, we're gonna stop people from making the next Star Wars movie.
No, you're not.
Cool. No, you're not. They're gonna make it on their extra computer in their spare bedroom on an old GPU that they used to use for video games. They're gonna make that, and they're gonna upload it to a torrent site.
Yep.
And then that decentralized torrent is gonna take off. And there's nothing you can do about it because you don't even own the video. Nothing they can do about it. So either embrace it or get screwed.
100%.
Yeah, you know, Tom, like the big issue here that Disney and Universal are citing with like the Shrek and the Stormtroopers and the Yodas and stuff like that is basically intellectual property theft, right? And for the longest time, going back to you know, when Viacom first started cracking down on all the fan-based Star Trek projects, I always thought that studios would be kind of like, it would benefit studios if they offered fan licenses, which basically means that, okay, you can purchase the license to use, like, you know, our IP as long as you don't make any money off of it, right? So like, and if you do make money off of it, that money rightfully belongs to the licensee. And so like for like $500, you could get like the license to do like a fan movie about Star Trek, right? And as long as you didn't make any money off of it, hey, the studio was cool with you putting it out there and releasing it, because one of the big issues that Hollywood is facing is like everything's just so expensive. And so if you move over to the user generated content, that's like free advertising for them. It's free content. It's how Star Wars survived that 20-year gap between the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy. It's how Star Trek survived in between that long gap in between the original series and the Next Generation. So why do you think studios are just reluctant to kind of evolve their business model, especially considering that a lot of their revenue streams are drying up right now?
I really wish I knew the answer to that, Matt. I mean, it makes sense at the end of the day, but also they run the risk of the fan making something better than the studio, and they can't have that, right? Like, 'cause a lot of this goes back to X and R. And I mean, really, Alec Peters fucked up just as much of that as Paramount did, right? So it was
he screwed a lot of people in the process.
Yeah, and he screwed a lot of people in the process. But that the screwing of people aside, I mean, everything he did is an exact representation of what Paramount was trying to avoid. And his project also does kind of make Paramount look bad, because they have not been able to produce anything of that level, story or visual wise, as far as connecting to the initial Star Trek in years. They'll spend $200 million more to make it not look like Star Trek now, right? So it doesn't make any sense. But no, I agree with you. I think that the whole a fan license of sorts is not a bad idea. You're not wrong. Like, George Lucas embraced the fan community. That was one of the few good things he did do as far as a Star Wars ambassador, or whatever you want to call it, where he allowed the fans to use the music, the sound effects, all that stuff. And he benefited from those, because he would turn around and he would do fan film awards every year, and Sci-Fi would run it on TV. So I'm sure he got a nice fat check from that and everything. So the only one who really loses in that scenario is nobody, because I mean, George is benefiting, the fans are benefiting.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a win-win scenario.
Someone said in the comments, real quick. Someone said in the chat, God forbid, you said you sound like those misogynist bigots, George Lucas and Walt Disney, because they embrace technology. I think it's awesome the way George Lucas first off, he embraced technology, but he also embraced fans, and he embraced all the creativity and the artwork that they brought to the table. A lot of the soul of Star Wars is gone now that it's been just corporatized by soulless Disney.
Also, Odin, so Tom made a good point about how the studios are afraid that fans could end up making better stuff than the studio could. But in my eyes, it's well, okay, so you have a free proof of concept where somebody went out and made something and it proved to be good. Now you can just go in and offer to bring them on board officially and let them make this whole thing official, because you already know that there's an audience for it and that it succeeded. So there isn't a lot of drawback in allowing people to play around with your IP and pick out, cherry pick the good stuff from outside of the bad stuff. Why do you think these studios are fighting so hard against the AI that they know is just inevitable?
A couple reasons why. I think part of it is kind of that slippery slope mentality, where if you allow one thing, then eventually more things will be allowed, and then more and more and more, and then eventually it's do you even what even is intellectual property at a certain point is probably where part of their reasoning is coming from. And the other is kind of that old expression used often these days, which is, it's the boomers. They just don't quite understand the technology. They don't quite understand what it is, what the benefits are, how to actually utilize it. And it really just reminds me of what happened during COVID, right? They made all of the wrong decisions because they were thinking for the short term. They weren't really thinking for the long term. And that's something that really has to be taken into account by all of these companies, is not just about how do they turn around the sufferings that they're going through in that short term, but also how do they really set themselves up for future success. And, it's almost like kind of the way you're kind of presenting it is, if you think about fans and having this technology as being almost like these little laboratories of innovation where they can all just play around with these things and eventually come up with some really good ideas, you could eventually then be able to buy the rights to those stories and then actually fully produce them. Because as good as AI might be getting, there's always going to be limitations. It kind of reminds me about, when 3D technology first came out, right? And the argument over, is it a gimmick or is it a format? And the people who argue that it was a good format and that it was going to add more depth and that it was something that could be further explored, like their main argument also was, oh, the technology will get better. Well, having seen 3D films over the course of many, many years, as the technology has gotten better, it's also still the same. It also still comes across more as a gimmick than anything else. It still has the same issue where it causes a lot of headaches for a lot of people. If you wear glasses, you're not going to really be able to enjoy the experience nearly as much. So it kind of reminds me of that as well, where you have a lot of these companies that really just don't, one, fully understand the technology, but also, two, are thinking more short-term than long-term.
Good stuff. You know what else is good stuff is super chats. We got Icthulu for $5. Just found this out, but how did Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey release a profitable sequel? Is this brand making more money than Disney? and what's interesting about that is that, so basically, you have all these copyrights expiring, like Winnie the Pooh, Steamboat Willie, Popeye, like all this stuff that's going into the public domain.
Right.
And originally, I think originally copyright was just like 15 years or 20 years or something like that.
It was 20 years of the life of the author, right?
Yeah.
And they extended it, and they extended it, and they extended it. And then Disney extended it to like 120 effing years.
Yeah. Like Disney was behind like pushing like the laws in
it's all
Congress
Disney.
to extend the
Disney
copyrights.
has destroyed art in this country, just so you guys know.
Yeah, and the idea behind copyright expiring instead of like being like everlasting was so that people could, get access to these things and creativity could flourish because they could either use them in new and inventive ways, or they can be inspired to spin off and other stuff.
Art is inspired by art. Nothing is original. Everything's inspired by everything.
Yeah, and as soon as Winnie the Pooh went into the public domain, you had a situation where some horror filmmakers, for a very low budget, decided to make a horror version of Winnie the Pooh, and that kind of hit big on the indie scene. And then like the sequel that they did, because the indie thing was like got so much press because it was like, Winnie the Pooh is an axe murderer. The sequel actually did better, and now they're doing like all these like spinoffs, like the Peter Pan one, the Steamboat Willie one, all this other stuff. So I mean that's just a great example of like what creatives can do once they get a hold of an IP, right?
Yeah.
Right. The silly part about this is because it took 100 years for them to be able to make this movie, right? And it's not even the version of Winnie the Pooh that's famous. It's like the version before the version before the version. That's what made this actually popular, because finally someone was able to actually be inspired by this IP and to do something different with it. Yep. You should, like, being inspired by art is really important. Disney has destroyed a lot of the art in this country, and it sucked for people like me who create designs, create video, who do animation. Man, it's always the no-brain idiots that don't know the difference between a bamboo pad or a stroker pen or Photoshop or whatever, or Illustrator or whatever, that complain about trademark because they can't create shit themselves. So they want a white knight for all these gigantic companies that have owned the trademark on Campbell's soup for 100 fucking years.
Yeah, it's also always lawyers and pencil pushers.
Just listen to this opening of the plot synopsis, though, of the second film. After narrowly surviving Winnie the Pooh's and Piglet's killing spree, Christopher Robin flees from the 100-acre wood. I mean, that alone probably brings a lot of interest to a lot of people.
Yeah, I want to watch that right now.
I mean, I have a horror film idea for I guess kind of horror action for Peter Pan, where Captain Hook's the good guy, because Peter Pan don't let people grow up.
Right. Yeah. Yep. I actually saw a theory about that, and someone. Well,
it's actually kind of comes from the original book, even though it was deleted later on. Like, Peter ends up killing the kids that don't want to. That start getting too old.
Right, they get too old. And again, so because the book was written from Peter's perspective, he's the hero, but really Captain Hook's the guy trying to like rescue the kids. Yeah,
rescue the kids, exactly. Yeah, yes.
It's awesome. It's an awesome flip. I want to see that so bad.
Yeah. You know what else is awesome is Hemorrhoid Hurts super chat here for Australian $2. Good morning, friends. 1 degree Celsius here, 33.8 degrees Fahrenheit. Yikes.
That feels great.
Yes, but Hemorrhoid Hearts, always appreciate you waking up early to join us on Saturdays. And guys, Major Chai Chai has gifted 5 Salty Nerd Podcast memberships, bringing us to a total of 11 memberships. We've hit our goal thanks to Major Chai Chai, Jillian N, and Aaron Charman. So thank you guys so much. Really appreciate that. All right, guys. So we've talked a lot about Hollywood dying on this show. And one of the telltale signs of this is that soap operas are now moving to mobile devices and vertical video. I found this really interesting article on the Hollywood Reporter where basically it says Soapy verticals are helping to keep Hollywood employed in LA as film and TV projects leave. And we all know that basically LA has been pushing the film production business out steadily for probably over a decade now. And other places are offering better incentives for like film and stuff like that. And so a lot of the actors and crew people who live in LA and are based in LA, they're just kind of like out of work. Like there's just not enough work to go around there. But what's been happening is a really interesting trend where basically people are producing like fast, low budget, essentially soap operas in LA geared specifically for vertical video and to be viewed on the phone. And so, like a lot of people are saying like, oh, well, this was Quibi's business model and Quibi kind of failed. But the thing about Quibi is they were spending hundreds of millions of dollars on content, whereas these guys, their budgets for like an entire season of vertical video shorts are anywhere between like, $50,000 and $250,000, depending on how many episodes they do. And so a lot of actors who were kind of like, looking down on this type of format in the past are now saying like, well, it's still work. And so like actors are slowly starting to adopt like these things, and production companies, there's like 4 or 5 production companies in LA that just like, rent out a soundstage and like shoot like a bunch of these episodes all in like, like a week or something like that. And it's keeping kind of like the local film industry afloat as LA burns down and riots break out and all that other crazy stuff. But it's also interesting to see that like, this is a small subsection that's embracing mobile viewing. Whereas Hollywood
burns down, the way you said that so casually, man.
Yeah, but Hollywood kind of like snubs its nose at like, oh, like you're making a web drama for the phone. And all these guys are like, yeah, we're making a ton of money doing it, and we're employing people and helping people keep their jobs and stuff like that. So I just thought it was interesting that like this is a new evolution that seems to be kind of cropping up under the radar. And I wanted to get your guys' take on it. So Dutch Butters, I know that just rejoined us. What do you think about watching low effort ship missiles on the phone? Is it a winning strategy?
Well, for my generation, I think it's good for us to just kind of doom scroll, I do watch a lot of silly little 12-second videos. What is so funny? What is Brian losing his shit for? Anyway, whatever. It's fine. But I know like my daughter's generation, my kids, my grandkids, they watch stuff on their phone all the time. My daughter doesn't own a television set because she watches everything on this stupid thing. I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to sit here and watch, Landman or something for an hour or 2 hours a day on my little 6-inch screen. It would drive me insane. I need something a little bit more substantial than that. But
of course,
different strokes, man. I mean, there's people out there that are going to consume that content. I'm not really one of them. Not in a serious manner, anyway. So.
Well, what's interesting, Odin, about this, like when I was growing up, you had soap operas, daytime TV, right? And these were like, things that they would churn out like, a day or two beforehand and be on TV the next day. And so like, it looked cheap, but like, every housewife in America was like addicted to one of these shows, One Life to Live, As the World Turns, and all that other stuff. And what's interesting about this is it's the exact same strategy, but it's just instead of daytime TV, it's just for the mobile device. So do you think that soap operas moving to mobile as opposed to daytime TV is a strategy that's going to have like a long-lasting effect?
I mean, it could. Obviously, they're changing the way that they're handling these now. Are these just for newer shows, or are they trying to take older shows and adapt them in similar
No,
ways?
these are brand new shows.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I mean, it really depends on the platforms, I suppose, because the way that the algorithm tends to work, right, is that you just get fed a bunch of random things, and so I'm assuming that they're going for these being basically one-offs or one-shots, not meant to be necessarily seen in any sequential order. So it'll be interesting to see exactly how that does as far as discovery for them, because maybe it is that if you're just going through your feed, or you're just going through kind of like the random videos section on these apps, maybe if you really like something, you'll actually go to their page, and then that's when you can actually watch them in order. Maybe they try to do it that way.
So they have their own apps that people download and watch these things on.
Okay.
So for instance, it's called Real Short, REEL. That's one of the companies that does this. They have 55 million monthly users. And so those people log in, they see like what's the latest release for this storyline that I'm following or something like that. Okay. So it's not so much like I'm sure that they put stuff on TikTok and YouTube and stuff for discoverability, but it's really to drive people to download their free app and then watch these things in sequential order, because there are stories to them.
Okay. Yeah, so that very well could be a strategy for them. I just think that the ultimate issue is that you do have to motivate people to actually go and download another app. And the one thing that, for some people at least, is probably a step too far is, having to download yet another app onto their phone. Because I think a lot of us tend to be like, okay, I've got way too many apps that I just never use ever either. Sounds like this company has figured out how to be able to market the app well enough to get a lot of active users. So it'll be interesting to see if they're able to move forward with it. But yeah, they have to start innovating. And this might be the way, at least when it comes to these companies and it comes to these types of projects, that they're able to actually move forward. So yeah, kudos to them for trying something.
Well, Tom, what's interesting about this is that this content is specifically geared towards bored housewives or women. So like basically these things are low budget, they're soapy, they're very smutty, sometimes they're nonsensical. They have a lot to do with billionaires, werewolves, vampires, and pregnancies.
So telenuevo?
Oh, and in fact, a lot of I think Telemundo is trying to break into this field using their telenovela skills. But basically, here's some of the recent trending titles that have been gaining popularity with this format: The Alpha King and His Virgin Bride, Carrying His Babies, Stealing His Heart, and Mafia Daddy's Surprise Sextuplets.
Oh my God, this is so cringe. Oh my God.
Well, if you make content like that, I mean, Lord.
But I mean, like, this is the same. This is the same audience that binges on trashy romance novels and trashy daytime TV. And so basically these people are like, okay, we know that there's an audience out there of women who are at home all day, and maybe they'll watch our content on our phone, but this is the type of stuff that they want. And this is the type of stuff that they're producing that's gaining traction. So what's your take on this, Tom? Is this a Quibi light scenario?
I guess hook them while they're young. Because yeah, I mean, they do know certain things that work, like the soap opera-y kind of stories, I guess, and then the type of stuff that girls and women are into. So, and gay people. So I guess it's working for them.
Yeah, gay people.
Like, I'm curious, what was the last title again? The Godfather Daddy?
Yeah.
No, Mafia Daddy's Surprise Sextuplets.
Jeez. Surprise Sextuplets.
Yeah, so surprise 6 babies.
Okay.
Yes.
If
people like it, I guess. I mean, this shit sounds like some fucking low.
It's low effort
shit.
Shit missile. Exactly
Yeah.
what Kadish said.
That's what the name of the app should be. And I'm taking $1 for every time it gets used.
I feel bad for Quibi, because Quibi was actually a different idea. It was actually something that was new. They had content that you can view vertically or horizontally. It was short, 5 to 10 minute episodes, but it was like classic storytelling. with actors, and it wasn't low effort. It was actually high quality. So it was content that was written in a way that can be consumed in smaller chunks, either vertically or horizontally, because they shot it basically on a square with everything center frame.
But that was also why it failed, is because it was so expensive to produce these like short hits. Whereas with this stuff, it's very cheap. In fact, one of their most popular series right now is a series called The Adjuster that's inspired by Luigi Mangione, the guy who killed that healthcare executive. And they cast a guy who looks just like him, and women are just fawning over like the criminal bad boy, the sexy bad boy.
All right, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and say right now, like this stuff just needs to be nuked with a missile, like every single one of these things, because it's just feeding. It is feeding into some really bad. Because I'm one of the persons where it's like, no, I don't think you should be able to do the right. You should have the right to do whatever it is that you want to do in your own home, like to a certain degree, right? Because I believe in morality. I believe in objective morality, objective principles, and so I think that having this kind of content be put out there that just is going to continue to corrupt the minds of persons. Obviously, the way that we fix that though is by being better parents. That's where it all starts off, and getting kids away from these screens.
I was going to say I disagree with the first part of your statement.
I know that first part is going to trigger, but that's a me thing. I understand that.
But you're right. It's up to the parents
and
it's
fathers
up to
actually raising their kids.
Yes.
Yeah, because this is like some of the shit sounds like a step away from porn.
If I found this app on my kid's phone, it'd be nuked.
Well, guys. So like the audience for this is like like older women. When I say older, I mean like 36 and up. But a lot of these studios that produce this stuff, and it's no different from the regular daytime TV slop that's been out there since the 80s. But a lot of this stuff, so like they're looking to branch out into like young adult fare, like more CW type stuff, things that tend to have like an audience for them. And Brian, I wanted to ask you, because one of the big technical innovations here is that these people, they're not using like super studio equipment. They're using like prosumer DSLR cameras. They're shooting them in the vertical format. They're using smaller crews, but they're still using like union crews and stuff like that. So people are basically able to get jobs and work in Hollywood doing this type of stuff, where they're taking advantage of the cheaper technology and the new formats. Yeah, it's not as advanced as Quibi, but at the same time, it seems to be a business model that is flying under the radar and actually like helping the economy. So what's your ultimate take on vertical video content made specific?
Can I just really quick comment on the format, because this is something that's been driving me nuts for years. We spent decades trying to get our TVs in widescreen so that we could watch movies the way they were meant to be seen. And this new generation, including Zack Snyder and Christopher Nolan, insist on us going back to 4:3. What the fuck?
Yeah, fucking stop it, please.
Look, man,
stop!
Stop it.
My
Stop
chubby
it.
dudes, my chubby dudes in latex soap opera is not going to be made for small vertical screens.
No, yeah,
Okay.
listen.
Anyway, go ahead.
Content
Sorry.
aside, the vertical screen should be done away with. I hate the concept of it. I hate people shooting content for it. I hate the vertical screen. Everything Tom just said is correct. We spent decades trying to get a movie theater in our house. We finally achieved that. And then Zack fucking Snyder releases his 4-hour epic on 4:3 aspect ratio. You know what I did? I downloaded that epic and I used a pan and scan program to create a 16:9 ratio version of that before I watched it.
Son of a bitch.
I refused to watch it in square format. I spent almost 4 hours of my life coding a pan and scan algorithm just so that I can output a 16:9 version of this. I have it. I'll put it on Dropbox. If you guys want it.
He should sue you. He's going to sue you now.
Whatever. I got to watch it. I got to watch the movie he actually intended me to watch on my whole TV and not, 60% of my television. I hate the concept of vertical television. Hate it. Hate the idea of vertical video. Hate it. I hate the fact that it's gotten so popular that I can't ask someone to take a picture without first preceding that with landscape, please. Horizontal, please. Because the default now is vertical. It's vertical. And there isn't a display in the world, including the ones you're watching us on right now, that are in vertical format. Can we
Everything
just
old.
stick with what we decided on
Everything old comes back
75
again.
years
Brian.
ago?
Everything old comes
God.
back again. You watch your vertical TV in your bell-bottom jeans. Okay, so
Dude, at the very least, like, this, I don't mind the low effort shit missile, but you know what? Expect them to be able to turn their phones while they're watching it. At the very least. At least Quibi was like, look, some people might want vertical, some might horizontal. Let's shoot it in a wide format, ultra square, so they can pick. Okay. Cool. Vertical, dude. Vertical suck my dick.
wow.
Well, you know,
Whoa.
what's funny, even my kid, so like he'll watch these shorts on YouTube, right? On the wide screen. He'll even watch them on TV, and it's just like it doesn't faze him at all. So it might be a generational thing as well, but also just like shooting for the format of the platform that you're targeting, I think is a big thing too, because a lot of people just hold their phones, like vertically. And TikTok, in particular, like they kind of popularized the vertical format in terms of like, watching videos and things of that nature. So I don't think the format is a bad thing necessarily, especially like if people are making these low effort shit missiles, like why not just cater to these housewives who like have like the phone vertically, like it's not like they're asking them to watch it on their TV screen in their living room with like the whole family or anything like that. But it is interesting to me because like it is a shift, right? And it's something that Hollywood, much like Brian, kind of thumbs their nose at. It's like, oh, you're doing vertical video. What are you, like a caveman?
Because we spent 60 years trying to get the movie theater, like Tom said, into our home. We did it. Why are we changing it up now? Why are we changing it? All right, we got the correct aspect ratio in our house. All right, let's go. You know what's funny is the phone is already the correct aspect ratio if you turn it the other way. There it is. This is in our home,
because they
just
actually
bigger,
scientifically sat down and figured out mathematically how many movies are shot in what aspect ratio and how wide. So what they did is they found a specific aspect that's right in between all of them.
Right.
Which is 16 by 9, close to 1.8. It just happens to be close to 1.851, which is Academy flat, which is the normal. Like if you're shooting a movie, it has to be at least that.
Right.
Like that was the format. If it can go wider, you can go all the way up to 260 to 1, which is like really fucking wide, where your screen is like really wide as hell. Right. So like we've gotten to this point, and now all they're doing is trying to make it squished again.
But you guys know, like the audience that they're targeting with this type of entertainment, these are the ones who are scrolling on Facebook, who are scrolling on Instagram, or scrolling on TikTok. And so like natively, it makes more sense to have like crossover in terms of like how your intended audience consumes content, right?
I swear.
It does to a point, but we're already hitting this point where people are trying to fill out the top and the bottom on widescreen movies. Right, like I seen some guy who thought he was so cool because he took Raiders the climax scene of Raiders of the Lost Ark and he made it in the long format. I'm like, so we get to look at a bunch of sky and a bunch of ground.
Right. What's the point? Yeah, I get what you're saying, Matt, but I'm just really worried that in like 25 years, someone's gonna be buying a vertical TV to put in their home. And we're gonna be going down this path again. What are we doing? Let's not do this.
Well, let's not keep making Demolition Man right.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Let's stop.
Like, did they forget that they had the vertical widescreen TVs in fucking that movie too? Like,
I mean, technically, your widescreen TVs, if you just turn it vertically, like it becomes a vertical TV.
That's basically what they did in Demolition Man. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But what's interesting to me about this is really kind of like the ramifications of, because like this industry is popping up in LA specifically to take advantage of all the underutilized talent that's there, and a lot of the like unions out there, like they don't bother with anything below like an $800,000 budget. And so a lot of these guys, like they're using union crew, but they're not paying union prices for them. And basically this entire kind of like cottage industry of these low effort shit missile content is blossoming in LA. And the minute that things start getting expensive, this thing could migrate to like Las Vegas or Texas or Florida or something like that.
So it's the new porn. basically, is what you're saying, because it's the same kind of the way porn started.
Yeah.
But it's not porn.
Honestly, before
Is
Matt
it really
showed me-
not though? In a way,
I
like
mean, it sort
kind of
is.
like
It
porn.
sort of is.
It's trashy romance.
Yeah, okay. But before Matt showed me this article, I didn't even know this thing existed.
So it's
I think
girly
just-
porn.
So it's vertical
just a trend.
Cinemax.
Doesn't matter. Nobody
Sorry,
watches.
Dutch, go
Nobody likes to watch TV on
I hope it's a trend.
thing. It's just the
Yeah.
thing. It's the
I just,
big deal.
I don't understand. The industry is constantly either pushing for the 4% of sexually confused trend
what does
trend,
the
trend chasers
way
or
your
the
phone
lowest
have
common
to do with
no,
your sexuality?
let me finish. Or the lowest common denominator, the lowest possible form of art. I just don't get it. Like, can we just not make cool shit anymore for everyone? Why has it got to be for the lowest IQ people out there?
I'm gonna go make
time.
MacGyver films for vertical phone. So
No,
All right,
you're
real
upsetting me, Dutch.
real quick.
You're upsetting me.
Real quick, we got the Beast 808 for $2. Horizontal is greater than vertical. Hashtag say it louder. Remain
Preach.
blessed. So
Preach.
the Beast agrees with Brian at least. All right, guys, real quick before we wrap things up, there's one more thing I wanted to talk about, which was Andor tops the Nielsen ratings. I know that this is very annoying for people like Odin, but I actually don't want to talk about Andor. What I actually want to talk about is how these articles about Andor topping the charts reveals how Nielsen actually ranks some of these streaming shows, which I thought was kind of interesting. So essentially what these articles are revealing, and there's an article on the Hollywood Reporter as well that showcases this. And essentially what they said is that the streaming charts calculate or are weighted more favorably towards shows that can be binged, because they base their ratings on watch time as opposed to, like how many people are watching. And so like the way Andor was able to kind of accomplish what something like The Acolyte or Mandalorian or whatever wasn't able to do is they did these 3 episode releases instead of going week to week. And so because there were more episodes to consume, the watch time got jacked up, and they were able to basically like rank higher in the Nielsen top 10 ratings because the same people were watching more minutes of each show. And so even though the Andor finale hit like number 1 on the Nielsen streaming rankings, that wasn't because like so many people were watching it. It was because a lot of people had binged through the previous episodes and added that on to like the tally. And then one of the interesting kind of ancillary things about Andor was that a lot of people, when they finished this final season, they then went and watched Rogue One, and Rogue One jumped to like the top of the streaming charts as well because of all that fall off and stuff like that. So Odin, what's your take on basically Nielsen using watch time as a metric for the rankings as opposed to simply the number of people who watch these things?
But that's the issue, though, is that I believe they don't have access to the information that they would need to be able to make that kind of metric known. Like basically when it comes to who's actually watching these shows, how many actual people are watching shows, only the streamers really have that information. And so you can only really go by so many things based off of, whether you've got one of the streaming sets in your home for some of these services, or whether it's being self-reported or whatever it might be. So the issue is like you can get that sample size and you can try to get it as accurate as you can, but you're never really going to be able to get like the exact number or maybe even close, because the only ones that really have it are the streamers. So good for them for doing so. The show is still incredibly boring and is a great sleep aid.
Yeah. It's so
Well,
boring.
Brian, you recently applied for to be a Nielsen family. What's your take on this?
I'm just trying to get that free streaming box, to be honest. I applied like years and years and years ago, and I finally got the letter a couple months ago. And I filled everything out, and now I'm waiting for my streaming box that will get me a bunch of free crap, and all I gotta do is let them spy on me. Yeah,
Dude,
cool.
that actually, now you've mentioned it, makes it even worse, because how can you trust those numbers when the people who they're taking it from are watching things that they get for free that if they had to pay for, it may not actually be the same numbers?
Maybe not, but like they have access to everything, so whatever they're watching is what they want to watch. So that's an appropriate viewing metric, whether they're paying for it or not.
I want to ask Tom Conders Jr. Do ratings actually matter with a subscription-based service? Do you think?
Not without actually knowing the reality of it, because it's all a bunch of fugazi and paired analytic bullshit.
It's very true. Dutch, have you watched Andor yet?
Nope. Haven't watched it.
Are you ever going to watch it?
I don't know.
If you can't get to sleep at night, I'd recommend it.
I'm still going to sleep to World War II in color, like I have been for the last decade. Puts me to sleep like that, man. It's awesome.
History Channel. Gotta love it.
Ask me about the Battle of the Bulge, dude. I'm down. I absorb it all when I'm sleeping.
All right, guys. Well, we had a lot to talk about today, and we talked about it. I want to thank my fantastic panel nerds for being here. I'm sorry Mr. Reagan never showed up. He's busy fighting for freedom, truth, justice, and the American way, but hopefully we'll get him on at some point in the near future. So if you showed up for Mr. Reagan, I do apologize, but it is what it is. Odin from OMB Reviews, any final thoughts, and where can people find more of you?
Yeah, you can find me over at OMB Reviews on YouTube, over on Rumble, and over on Twitter/X. And Box Office Breakdown will be going live sometime tomorrow around 3 p.m. Eastern Time. And thank you as always for having me.
Well, thank you for being here, even though I know we annoy the heck out of you. But,
I have fun, though. That's why I
appreciate you
back.
showing up. Yes. And Tom Conders Jr., I want to thank you for eating your cereal early so that you can actually show up for the TV show. Any final thoughts? Where can people find more of you, and what is it you like?
Well,
I like turtles.
and you can find me at Midnight's Edge After Dark, and wherever action figures are sold.
Right on. And Brian from the Popcast making his triumphant return back to Salty Saturdays after a long hiatus. You got the Brain Show coming up. Why don't you tell a little bit about what you're going to be talking about on today's show, and also any final thoughts you might have?
Yeah, vertical sucks. We shouldn't appease the lowest common denominator. If your IQ is room temperature, then you have to deal with not getting your preferred format. That's just the way it is. And we're talking about the LA riots today, as well as some retarded senators.
Brian, there's no more LA riots. Israel's at war. It's a different news cycle now, dude.
We're also talking about the Israel. No, but that's still happening. We're also talking about the Israel thing. A lot of the illegal immigration, the ICE raids. We got some funny and terrifying video to share with you.
What everybody doesn't know is that Brian has actually been in Mexico for the last 2 weeks because he got deported.
Yeah,
and he had to figure out how to get back to his
this
house.
whole room. This is a set I had shipped from California. We're talking about that stuff, and it's gonna be great. It's gonna be a good show. Also, please check out DC Unleashed. That's my DC channel. I am 400 view. I'm very close to monetization on the channel, and my main channel, The Popcast. We just released a documentary about the Christopher Reeve Superman, and it's very good, if I say so myself.
Right on. Dutch Butters, what's going on with the Dutch Butters gaming channel?
Dutch Butters gaming channel. We're just, shorts, podcasts, live game streams. We're just having a lot of fun. We're playing Helldivers. We're playing this new game. Through this weekend, there's a game out there called Jump Ship that this small independent Swedish studio put out as a free demo a couple of weeks ago, and it is going to be a big game when it comes out at the end of the summer. It's super fun. Everybody go check it out if you get a chance. We have a new podcast dedicated just to that game called the Jump Ship Hypercast that has been out for a few days now. And also we have a new weekly Salt Divers podcast for the Helldivers game. And we're just chugging along, man. We're having a good time, having a lot of fun, me and Alex over there. So come check it out.
Stuff. Yep. And big thank you to REK Thoughts, Icthulu, Hemorrhoid Hurts, and The Beast 808. Really appreciate your support, guys. And also want to give a big shout out to everyone who helped us hit our goal for the Salty Nerd memberships. We do appreciate you. So we got Major Chai Chai, Aaron Charman, and Jillian H. Guys, thank you for helping us hit our goals. As always, we appreciate the hell out of y'all.
Also, guys, it's right after this. Someone asked in the chat. It's right. I'm literally going to go pee and then start that stream.
Yep, and we will automatically redirect you through the power of technology to Brian's channel as soon as our stream ends, so you can check it out there. And be sure to tune in next week, same salty time, same salty channel, for more Salty Saturdays. And until then, stay salty, my friends.